In business, you often hear, listen to your customers or follow industry standards. Yet, sometimes it's breaking those standards and daring to go against the market that sparks real breakthroughs. In the late 90s, Fruity Loops appeared. Professionals scoffed, that's a toy for kids. But today, under the name FL Studio, it's one of the most widely used DAWs in the world. This is more than a story about music software. It's about psychology, culture, design, and how time itself can transform our idea of what's serious or professional. And that's why the Fruity Loops journey still matters for UI and business decisions today. Fruity Loops launched in 1999 by ImageLine, at a time when the music production industry already had a few established standards in hardware and software. Let's remind ourselves what it looked like back then. Most DAWs like Logic or Pro Tools worked like a giant spreadsheet for music. Every instrument sat on its own track, stretching from the very first second of the song to the very last. Around the same time, Lego was reinventing play. Kids didn't want finished toys, they wanted a system of pieces they could rearrange endlessly. Fruity Loops felt the same way. Less of a studio, more of a construction kit. It didn't look professional, but it clicked with a new kind of creativity. So the unexpected but welcome success pulled the company into bold experiments, and that what led to real change. Despite the heavy piracy, Fruity Loops made it through with luck and psychology. Teenagers who opened the program back then didn't carry the baggage of professional rules. They weren't comparing Fruity Loops to Cubase or Pro Tools. Most of them had never ever seen those. What they saw felt more like a toy, and that was exactly what they needed. I remember the first time I heard about this studio back in 2007, when I met my now husband. I was watching from the side as he skillfully switched between those little blocks, and the program didn't seem as complicated as the ones other producers used. Those required music theory knowledge or professional arranging skills, and that gave me a feeling of hope that maybe we could make it too. As the forum wars raged on, DJs and producers grew from teenagers into adults with jobs. At night, they came home and kept experimenting with music. Those guys became successful, and soon the first well-known artists started admitting they had written their tracks with FL. What kept working for FL was the play effect. The simple interface lowered the barrier of entry just like a video game. Quick results gave them dopamine hit that kept them going. Paradoxically, the criticism only made this door more appealing. For young users, it felt like a rebellion, a chance to prove they could make music without expensive gear or grown-up software. Once someone invested time learning FL Studio's unique UX, it created a sense of irreplaceability. Switching to another DAW became psychologically difficult and even painful, especially if it was pricier. Students grew up, found jobs, and kept investing in ImageLine despite the lifetime free updates policy. I'm not sure if the founders was inspired by this historical precedent. In the 1950s, rock and roll shocked the adult world. Some critics even called it musical baby food, something primitive and immature. For the conservative audience, it seemed like nothing more than a childish fad that would quickly fade. But for young people, rock became a symbol of freedom, rebelling against the system, and the way to build their own identity. The film Blackboard Jungle, featuring rock around the clock, even sparked riots in movie theaters. Teenagers felt this music belonged to them, not to their parents. Over time, the cycles of saturation and fashion began to spin faster and faster, yet the pattern itself never changed. What first feels childish, playful, or even silly keeps unlocking new niches and new products again and again. From a UX UI designer's perspective, when you break it down, FL Studio looks quite similar to other DAWs. Almost the same modules: the upper bar, instruments, piano roll, arrangement window with controls like bars, switches, faders, graphs, and knobs. But once these pieces are assembled with their own internal logic, the experience becomes unique. As ImageLine and FL Studio grew, they developed unique features that satisfied professional needs but still preserved the software's original paradigm. Loopstarter speeds up music creation with ready-made templates and loops. Cloud lets musicians store projects, share files, and collaborate across devices. And still, the pattern window remains. A grid where each row is a sound and each column is a step. By painting cells, you trigger a sound at a specific moment. They also kept a distinctive visual style, a typical design choice in contrast to competitors. In the early 2000s, most social networks felt like they were for geeks or limited to students, like early Facebook. But MySpace became the first mass platform where musicians could share their tracks directly and fans could discover new music. MySpace gave young talents a chance to reach beyond their neighbors and local crushes, to actually expand their audience. And nobody cared which DAW you used for this cool track. In 2025, business is still about intuition, luck, and sticking to your line while continuing to experiment. Which makes me wonder, what today's market saturation maybe right now is the perfect moment for new Fruity Loops to break through. In a world that feels heavy, rising costs, war, lockdowns, screen addiction, everything so serious, maybe it's time to remember what FL Studio showed us. That even a toy can grow into movement. That play, simplicity, and rebellion sometimes change the culture more than seriousness ever could. What seems like a weakness now might just become power. And until the next time.